Welcome back to another episode of the M3 podcast. It's your host, Brianna Danielle. I have Andrew Zalez here with me. He's a content creator and strategist who has generated over 1 billion organic views online, a milestone that very few in this world can claim. He doesn't just chase trends for virality, but it's also to build and educate and trust in others the scales of the platforms that he's created to build your business deeply with founders, creators, and marketers alike. So I know that he's worked with big names like David Meltzer, Jeff Fenster, Ed Milet, and many others, including them. But I'm so happy to have you on this show. Welcome, Andrew.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to get into this. I'm really curious to know which ways we're going to go. I'm sure we'll go every way, but I'm really excited to just be on here. Thank you for having me. And hopefully, we leave your audience with some amazing gems today.
I agree. Well, what captivated me right away is you go to your social media and you can see your brand right then and there. I'm like, okay, you clearly state how you help people. You also are explaining what are some big names that you've worked with and like your organic views right away. I'm like, okay, this draws my attention. It gets to me, at least to relate to how I want to inspire or work in other ways to build an audience myself, right? So I can
Right.
relate to it, I can connect to it. And I was like, okay, you also mentioned some interesting facts about you, how you worked at UPS back in the day. Over a decade ago, you were in a cycle stuckness of jobs that you just couldn't get into the right direction. So you were like, all right, let's figure out how to get out of this cycle. And you went from being broke to where you are now. And I'm like, this is really nice living. I'm like, man lives comfortably, by the way, too. So I'm like, we're here in today's day and age, just seeing you scale and grow your own business and others as well. And I just want to know how you've helped people. But first and foremost, let's go back to the guy who was in UPS and was working, at the jobs that he didn't really feel were fun or maybe even valuable to him.
Mhm.
So what was that like? What was that type of Andrew?
Oh man, that's a very different Andrew than the one you're looking at now. Um, Yeah, I mean, back then, growing up, I really wasn't big on school. I always like kind of had this like creative brain, but didn't really do much about it. But I always knew like I loved learning with my hands and stuff. So I always had this thing about like school. If I wasn't interested in it, I really didn't spend much time in it. But if I was interested in, like, I could get obsessed about something. Um, but college wasn't really even in the picture for me at the time. I just didn't have any interest to do it. But coming out of high school, obviously, I'm like, okay, well, I have to do something, and try to figure it out. So the first thing I did was I was like, okay, well, I think it was like my junior year in high school. Actually, I started working just because I was like, okay, well, I want a car and this and that. My parents looked at me when I asked them how much they had saved for my car. They just laughed at me and were like, if you want a car, you got to work for it. And so that's where my job, my series of jobs started. Uh, but really, I mean, it was from everything, UPS, warehouse jobs, even after high school. Like, that's when I started working full time in a lot of these different warehouses where, I mean, I was doing hard labor, just 70, 80 hour weeks every week, 18 years old. And it was just, I went through probably 12 of those different jobs, just finding myself in the same exact position where I'd be walking into work and knowing, okay, I'm having another 12-hour shift today. And I'd be sitting in the locker room dressing into my outfit or wardrobe, and I was just been sitting there like, there's got to be something more. Like, there's like, life just can't be this. And I would see the different people in every single one of these companies, and this guy would be like there for 20 years and 25 years and 30 years, and they're like working more than me 30 years in and just making a little bit more than me. And I'm kind of like puzzled, like, is that my future? Like 30 years of this? And so a lot of it was just um, wanting something different. Back then, I just didn't know what that different was. I didn't even know that I could make money with media. It was just kind of like a little hobby. I always made little YouTube videos growing up. I always made little, when the flip phones started having cameras, it was like I would use those and start messing around with it. Luckily, I did have my mom who was got into photography when I was a little bit younger. I was probably like 12, 13 around that time. And she got into photography, started a business with photography, and I became her like backpack mule. And I would just carry around lenses for her. I'd set up backdrops and stuff. And she got really good at it. But at that time, she would be like, "Oh, you should do this," and blah blah blah. And I was just like, "Mom, I don't want to do banquets and maternity shoots and quinceañeras, whatever she was shooting." I was like, "That just does not interest me." But thank you, Mom. So it wasn't until way later on that I picked up the camera again. But it really was at one of my last jobs that I had was a construction company. I was doing hard labor for them, landscaping, and I made a video of me and my buddies snowboarding, like on a GoPro, and posted it on YouTube for fun. And I get back in that next week, and I'm at the job sites, and the founder of the company gives me a call, and I'm like, "Huh, okay." So I answer it, and he's like, "Hey, I just saw this, this YouTube video of you and your friend snowboarding." And my instant reaction, it was a bunch of like degenerate guys learning how to snowboard. So it was like vlogish style, funny, So in my head, I'm like, which part? Which part did you see? And he's like, no, look, I would like to hire you to do this for some of our houses. And I was like, really? And he's like, yeah. Do you think you can do it? I'm like, sure. And so they literally signed me up for paid me for a first house, and I went with a GoPro and filmed it. And it's like $1 million property, and I just put the video together, taught myself how to edit on iMovie, and then after that, they contracted me for 13 more. Really quickly, I realized that I was making more money doing that for them than I was even working for them. And then on top of that, I was like, "Hey, I love this!" And that was my main thing. I just wanted to find something that I loved. I love to do. I always had like a great work ethic. I got that from my dad, but um, it was always like, man, but I want something that I'm passionate about. Because when I'm passionate about something, I can obsess over it. I can spend the most amount of time on it, and it doesn't feel like work to me. So that was kind of the initial spark of like what had happened when I realized that there was an opportunity there to actually make a career out of this. I didn't know how far or where it would take me. I just knew that I could pay my bills with it, and I was happy with that. So that was kind of the initial start or step into media from a young age, just learning how to, I guess, do it and provide value to others. Because shortly after that, I quit that job and I went and started my first company in 2018, and that was in social media marketing. I started getting on the marketing side because I realized the more I get into the marketing side, the more I can make businesses money, and the more they're being willing to pay me. So
Mhm.
started really going deep dive on that end of it. But I mean, I was just doing free stuff, free videos in the very beginning, and just doing whatever I could to build a portfolio. And surely but slowly, it just started kind of like one gig and turned into another gig, and this one would get a referral from here, and surely eventually it started to kind of catch some steam, and that's where I started to actually work with some bigger brands for the first time. Like I had a water bottle company that I did commercials for. I had a really big entertainer out of LA, an actor that basically hired me to do his first step into music for a music video and direct the whole thing. And I flew to Hawaii for the first time for work, and like with Ty Lopez's team and a bunch of like just amazing entrepreneurs. But that's kind of where it started, from coming out of high school, not really knowing what I want to do, somehow stumbling on this because I liked making videos, and then started opening in the world of social media. So it was a very interesting kind of turn of events, but it's cool seeing everything looking backwards.
You are the definition of what is possible in this world because you didn't go to college, I'm guessing, right?
Mhm.
Okay.
No college,
You built
YouTube
yourself from
University.
the YouTube University, exactly, right? You
Yeah.
built yourself from the ground up,
Mhm.
and you also created a living for yourself out of nothing, out of pure air, literally thin air in
Yeah.
cyberspace. And obviously it took a lot of time and effort, but I see that you created something out of, like I said, something very small, very basic, very minimal to what is very like a marketable, valuable piece of content for
Mm,
many businesses throughout the world.
mm,
And this now relates to the eye that you had with your mother as a photographer. I'm like, whoo, I'm going in so many directions here because you already had an eye for creation.
yeah.
You understood, and I learned something about passion, and it had to do with the Latin meaning about how that ends with sacrifices and suffering. And I'm
Mm.
like, I don't know if I was listening to this and hearing it as like a spiritual, we'll get there too,
Yeah,
spiritual part
for
of
sure.
it. But um, I'm curious where this belief factor came in, because that is the spiritual side of it, where
Mm,
you said, I can do this. Like, I know I can do this because supply and demand showed up at your doorstep, where
yeah.
your boss called you and asked you to do something for the landscaping job.
Mm,
And that right there is supply and demand to me. I'm like,
yeah.
okay, you served and you fulfilled a purpose right there.
Mhm, mhm.
So, how did the belief factor come in where you're like, I could do this for others, or I could reach out and expand my opportunity?
Yeah, good question. I think, honestly think that it was more so I don't know, like, I feel like I lacked a lot of belief then, looking back now. I think that's one of the things I had to work on a lot was the belief factor, because back then it was just kind of like I wasn't even sure if I could do the first one. I just said yes, and I was, like, scared, and I'm, like, sweating, and I'm like, "Okay, alright, I hope they like it," you know? Um, but the belief I think more than anything, I was just so over where I was. I was tired of where I was sitting and staying in these jobs that I was willing to take the chance, take the risk, um, go and be very uncertain. Because in the beginning, it was like up and down and up and down. And like, um, it really was just more so like I am so, I guess, fed up, if you will, of like my current situation. I'm willing to do anything to change it. And so for me, it was
Mm,
like, if this can be a vehicle for me to change it, one, I feel fulfilled with it. I love it. So that's a check. And then also two, that it can actually make me money and help me to pay for my bills. Like, great. Like those two, it was like, this is awesome. Done. Like, let's do it. I'm not even sure if I really looked at it from a long perspective or not. I was just kind of right there. Like it was better than what I was currently doing. Um, and yeah, so a lot of the belief I think came after just the reps. Like it was like even that water bottle commercial, for instance. Like when I did that, I was way in over my head kind of thing. I was freaking out. I didn't even have the equipment to do it. So I rented $50,000 worth of equipment that I didn't know how to use. I taught myself on YouTube the night before how to use it. And
wow.
then we get to the actual filming spot. We're on the last day of filming. I got my little sister to be the actor in it too. And I like pulled together like any strings I could. We had a spot like this soccer field out in LA, and it was like the last day we had the rental and everything. And we pull up to shoot, and the gates are locked. And we had probably about 35-ish minutes of sun left because we wanted a sunset shot and drone shots and all that. And I remember having to climb over like this 15-foot fence with $50,000 of gear, and having somebody hand it up, and then my sister on the other side, and I hand it down, and like just the craziest stuff where after that, then I'm like, okay, like, this little thing, or this guy wants a YouTube video, or this guy wants a video of his, car shop, whatever it was, like that then to me was so much more doable after, a lot of these challenges and everything else where it's like I built the belief through doing hard things, really. Yeah.
Mm.
So I think that's where it started to really shape, my career.
It sounds like genuine character building right there.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. It was a lot of character building, but
Can you share some of the adversities during that time of character building?
oh yeah, I mean, there's tons. Um, like for instance, even when I started, when I first made the decision, all right, I'm gonna go all in, I'm gonna start this company, and it was like, okay, who's I don't have anyone that wants to pay me. I didn't grow up around entrepreneurs. I didn't know entrepreneurship. I was very naive to the entire thing, business owners and everything else. I thought there were some like magical like people out there that I just never even knew or met. I just knew there was rich people out there. I just didn't have the exposure at a young age. So once that started happening, and I got into business, I started doing a non-negotiable of like sending 30 messages a day because it would be like 1 month I'd be busy and I would have hours and hours of filming, editing, whatever I could for the clients that month, and then the next month it would be completely dry, like to the point
Mm.
where I'm like, is my phone off? Like, what is going on? Like, and at that point, I had to realize, okay, I need to constantly have this pipeline going. And that was really the big struggle in the beginning was like having this up and down in the pipeline and learning how to combat that. But I think even more than the business stuff, it was the internal work that I had to do, like the limiting beliefs, the habits that I had made over the years, especially the bad habits that I had made around. I never went to college, but I partied like I did. So I had friends at every college. So I was always partying, always doing this, always going down these just rabbit holes, especially when I was going through all those jobs that I just felt like were just not for me. I would escape on my weekends. And that
Mhm.
was kind of like I'd work all week like crazy and then I would escape on my weekends. I was like, I'll party up, I'll spend whatever. It doesn't matter. Like, I just want to live it up on my weekends. And then during the week, it would just be back into this low throughout the week just to put up with it. And so, um, a lot of the internal kind of work I had to do was probably the biggest thing because I had a lot of just unworthiness to deal with. Even that deservingness to be able to charge a certain fee, whether it's high or low, it's like eventually you have to be comfortable with asking for it. And that's what I had struggled with. And for me, it was just based off of insecurity. Oh, am I worth that? Am I worth enough? Are they going to be happy with it? Like a lot of the doubts and insecurities. That was mainly the biggest things I had to shift early on. And I
Mhm.
didn't even know that until my first mentor came around. So I'm basically running up this wall and trying to figure it out and not sure why nothing's working. When in reality, it's like, okay, I had to work on myself first and then allow that to reflect out where I started getting in rooms with different types of people, getting people that were attracted to the person I was becoming instead of like who I was prior to that. It started to really, I think that's where it began of like, I was like, oh, I need to level up in order to do this. So yeah, definitely. I mean, there's a bunch of things that I could go into. I mean, adversity that it just there's always constantly something new. So, um, but I think those times are really the ones that um, allowed me to see how strong I could actually be during it. Because there was times where even when I was starting the business, and at that point I was 18ish, and I was like trying to figure it out. I had all these bills to keep up with. My family, both of them, my mom and my dad. Were both like, "What are you doing?" kind of thing, and they didn't understand it. My mom was very much the follow your dreams, but go do it, and that was kind of
Mhm.
it. My dad was very much go get a job, work there for 20 years, get good benefits, and retire. And so trying to build that business while both of them were kind of at my throat of like, figure it out now. It felt like I was in this fantasy land, right? Where it was like, oh, you have this dream and this want and this desire. Nothing's really come to fruition yet. And the people around you are waiting to see, and they're like, well, nothing's happening. So go do something. But in my head, I'm like, I just can't. I can't go work a normal job. I can't go back to the normal phase. And if I do that, I was afraid that I would get comfortable again and stay there. And I wouldn't keep pursuing this. And so for those first like 6 months of the business, I mean, I was trying to live off nothing and trying to make it. And um, really, I mean, at that time, I was living on my dad's couch, and I was paying him like $200 a month for his couch. And it was just wake up, get on my computer, and do as much as I possibly could to potentially generate any kind of new clients, or just develop my skills. And then all the way till like night. And then I'd go back to the couch, sleep, and then wake up again. And my computer was right next to it, a little tiny desk with little post-it notes and stuff. And, the first books I ever read. And that's really how it started. And I was like, okay, if I can keep my bills as low as possible, then I can basically extend the runway. Right. I don't have to make more now. I can extend the runway by dropping my bills. So in my head, I was like, okay, let's go as efficient as possible. And I did that. And I did that for the night about 7 months total of like sleeping on the couch, waking up, doing that, going back to sleep, and just doing as much as I possibly could. But that was kind of the beginning of it. And then obviously with parents and pressure from them trying to make things work and happen,
Mhm.
it was definitely tough, especially when that was my environment. That's what I was in. And I'm trying to change and become different, but you're in the same environment. And it's like those two don't really go together. So really, I had to hold on to the vision more than anything of, um, like this can become something like, and I wasn't even sure if I had a vision. I just was so stubborn, I think, that I wasn't willing to do anything else. Like, yeah, I was just super hard headed. So I was like, no, I'm gonna make this work, and this is gonna work. Like that's it. Like I'm just gonna keep going till it works. And yeah, that's a few little adversity. I can give you a ton more, but but that's kind of what I experienced in that first jump of like getting into media and business for the first time.
I'm very impressed by your guerrilla marketing, how you literally would send 30 text messages a day, or you would reach out to people, give them phone calls. It's
Mm,
the standard going door to door, right? I
mhm,
think of it as probably still to this day the best marketing besides word of mouth.
mhm.
It's all the same. Word of
Yeah.
mouth is really good marketing, but
Mhm.
going out and doing guerrilla, like actually connecting with people, that's what they want. They want to connect to A, the brand, B, the
Mhm.
person, and see the product or service that you're selling.
Yep.
So I think of it as the all encompassing when you connect and you do guerrilla marketing and you're the one who's really reaching out and saying how meaningful this is what you're doing, and you're providing a service to people that didn't even know it existed before, right? So people
Mm.
now know, even if they didn't hire you in that moment, they might reach out to you months or years down the road and
Right.
still come
Right.
back to you and say, hey, I need your help now.
Right. Right. 100%. And you hit it on the nail on the head. It's like it's funny because I was going door to door. I was going into businesses, walking in and getting doors shut on me, and like, what do you mean social media? This is like, how is that going to improve my business? Get out of here, like, and that's
You
kind
love
of
it
what
right now.
happened. Yeah, and it
Yeah.
was because it was still very new, so a lot of small business owners weren't spending money, let alone like anything substantial on social media.
Mhm.
It was like back then they were mostly just buying websites and SEO and maybe some advertising, but nothing crazy. And so that's when I went to the DMs. I was like, one, it's way more efficient. I could spend an hour and a half, find 30 new accounts, and send them personalized messages. And then from there, I would send them and be like, hey, I really like this about your X page, right? Or whatever it was that their brand had to deal with, and something that genuinely like spoke to me, I would comment on it and be like, hey, I love the way you explain this concept, or I love the way you speak about this message and the purpose that you have behind it. If you ever need any help, I'd love to help you with any video photo work. Let me know. And that was, I mean, I sent that message probably close to 1,000 times of like different people. Did that for like 8 months of just figuring out. And that was the non negotiable of like, okay, no matter what, when things get busy, let's make sure we do this, because the second I would get busy, I would stop doing that, and then the pipeline would stop, and then I'd find myself not busy again.
Yeah.
And it was this constant cycle. So I was like, okay, as long as I'm constantly feeding the pipeline, I always have something coming in. So yeah, that was really early on, but yeah, the DMs, I mean, I didn't expect it to go and work as much as it did, but now I have a message that I help people with, and telling them like you're literally one DM away from a life-changing opportunity with a relationship, because that's quite literally what happened to me. So it's been an awesome ride, but yeah, it's crazy to see even then, but that still works today. So people can still message. It's very personalized, and it's an instant way. We've never had so much access than we do today. Like I could DM the president of the United States and say, hey, if you ever need any video photo work, let me know. Like I could have done, and I did. I messaged every blue check I could find. Like a lot of the people I ended up being able to work around and with later on, it was kind of cool. But like I was just going, I was shooting for the stars no matter what. So yeah, it was a lot of fun. But looking back on that, it's pretty crazy to see.
You get it. You really get it. I'm impressed by the fact that you hired a mentor. You found a mentor. I don't know if you actually hired them or if you just were like
I did
attached to
after.
them. Yeah, right. You might have just latched onto them and said, "Hey, I'm stuck with you. You don't have
Yeah,
a choice." But
yeah, yeah,
when
yeah.
you hired your first mentor, I'm curious what lessons they might have taught you, or what's the greatest thing that they might have given you as advice, a piece of advice that you can share.
Mm.
And who is the greatest mentor you've had of all time?
Oh man, that's a that's a tough one. If I had to pick one, it'd probably have to be Meltzer. He had the most amount of impact in such a transitional period of my life, and he was my first mentor. Like, but for then it was for first I worked for him, and then I hired him after I left. But so coming in at first, he was one of those DMs. He was one of the cool DMs I sent out. I was like, hey Dave, I love your stuff. I love your purpose and your mission. If you ever need help, let me know. And his
Mhm.
team replied, and they were like, hey, we're actually adding people to the office. And If you like to apply here. And I sent in all my stuff. But in there, I tried to contract them under my company still. And they replied like, hey, we love your website. We love your work and your portfolio, but we really need somebody in house. And
Mm.
if anything on your end changes, let us know. We'd love to meet. And I was like, okay, I'll meet with you guys. Like, let's see where this can go. And so I set the meeting with them. I go down to the office, and I'm sitting there with his COO and his head of media. And it's like a glass door office, so you can see through everything. I see David in and out of like 3 meetings, a podcast interview, all while I'm in this one like meeting with them interview. And I just remember like in my head, I'm like, this is entrepreneurship 101. Like if I can learn from this guy, in that time, I'm like, I want to learn business. Like, so I didn't see it as a job. I saw it as a mentorship. And that's how I treated it. And so they offered me the job that day. I actually had a booked trip to Thailand with another entrepreneur named Dan Fleischman, who I ended up canceling on. Luckily, I gave him a heads up about the meeting, so they were cool about it. But yeah, I ended up canceling it while I was sitting in the office right there. And they even offered me, hey, do you have any travel coming up or anything? And I'm like, nope, I'm good. Let's start tomorrow. And like I just did not want to waste a day to get in there. But after that, I was with them for about a year and a half. Uh, Spent every day with Dave. I mean, we would talk 5 minutes a day on the phone every single day, checking in. And every single time he came in the office, if he had even 30 seconds, like breather in between a meeting, in between a call, I had in my notes always like 3 questions ready to go, 3 questions ready to go. I didn't want there to be silent. I just wanted to pick the dude's brain. So every single time I would just start asking him questions, asking him questions. And so surely but slowly, he started to like mentor me. And at that point, I kid you not, I pretty much copied this guy's entire like routine, his entire framework. I adopted everything from him. And when you're in media, you're a very special position because not only am I spending the most amount of time with the founder or the brand, I'm also listening to them on a constant basis. So imagine 10 hours a day of this guy's information just being put into your brain, plus in person, and talking on the phone, whatever else. I learned really fast and I started to implement everything. I started waking up at 4 a.m. every single day. I started reading for the first time. Like, this is my first dip into personal development, like actual personal development at all. The first book I ever read was his book, like cover to cover. Besides that, high school Spark Notes, I never wasted time. I didn't like to read. But like his book, first one ever, it's called Connected to Goodness. And it was the first book I ever read cover to cover. And that year I read like, I don't know, 15 other books. Atomic Habits was a big one, and Think and Grow Rich, and all these other books. And I ended up just investing in myself so much. And that was really the advice he gave me, was to be kind to your future self and invest in your future self. So I started doing these things to invest in my future self, like the reading books. And at the time, he was big on meditation. So I was like, okay, I'm going to meditate. I'm going to read. I'm going to work out every single day. I didn't really work out. I hated running, but I started running every day. I ran like 200 miles that year. I meditated like 100 hours that year, and I tracked it all. And like down to I still have the book where I tracked habits. I would go like 180 days straight without missing 8 non-negotiables and all. It was a completely different person, but it was through feeding myself different thoughts, different beliefs, unwinding other things, going into emotional intelligence, all these other just factors that play into it. And then eventually it's like, I started to see the results in how I was showing up. And so Meltzer was definitely that guy for me, who one challenged me to the point where I'm like, this guy's 52 and he's running circles around me. Like it almost was a competitive edge. I was like, I'd wake up at 4 and I'd be half asleep, but I know that he's awake. And I'm like, okay, if he's twice my age and he's awake and going after it, like I can't not. And obviously having him as an encouragement, was great. Cause I told him, I picked him up from the airport one time and we had an hour drive, home, and I'm just talking in the car and I was just like asking questions. And I was like, oh, I'm going to ask questions the entire time. About 10 minutes into the ride, I'm out of questions. And I'm like, and I'm like, okay. He's like, anything else? And I was like, yeah, hold on. Yeah, there's more. There's more. And then I was trying to figure out, I was like, you know what? And I just start kind of pouring out like to this guy. I'm like, I want to be in front of the camera. I want to be on stages. I want to be in there. I want to be the coach. I want to be the business. I want to do all these things. And he just kind of very relaxedly like, you will. I said, you will. I see it in you. And he gave me like 2 or 3 like focuses, really easy tips. Follow this, do this, and do this, and you'll get there. And I was like, done. I can do that all day long. And after that talk, our relationship really started to change. And even to the point when I left, it was such an amazing, I guess, parting of like because I left him, I made him a personalized like canvas that I got printed for him from a poem that he really loves called the "Don't Quit" poem, and just getting to hug it out. And he told me, he's like, you know what, my ex interview, he's like, I knew you weren't going to be here forever. He's like, I knew there's going to be more. And he was just super encouraging. And he's actually the guy who got me connected with Ed Milet after their team. He was like the resource in between. So he helped me to transfer out as well. Because when I brought up that conversation where I was like, hey, if I ever think about like transferring, like, when should I tell you? And he's like, whenever it comes up. I was like, okay, you got a minute? And that was kind of how that conversation went. And yeah, he's been one of my biggest support. I've been able to go to his like daughter's graduation party, and I get to see him all over the world when we travel. And every time they're down here doing an event, the team hits me up and, hey, come say hi and everything else. And so I've got to build a real genuine relationship with him, and seen as he was one of the first people who, once I got under his leadership, it was like, oh, there's real leaders in this world. Like there's people who are actual leaders, not bosses. They're leaders. And for me, it raised the standard for what I was willing to accept as a leader after that. Like somebody worth following. Right. And so that
Mhm.
was one of the biggest things where opened my eyes, where not only did it teach me that, like, not to be like, it raised the bar of like, okay, this exists and this can be a standard, but also what I wanted to be later on, how I wanted to be that leader for others, and eventually build a business around that and lead a team that I could drive in the same way. So yeah, if I had to pick one, it'd be him. Hopefully Jeff and Ed don't get mad, but I learned a ton from both of them too. But emotionally, just on an impact level, and like he's the guy I can call him right now if everything's hitting the fan, and I have. I had a business fail on me even after all that, and completely just dropped in. It was the toughest time probably in my life, to the point where I even sold my car just to make rent, just because I thought I could build the business back in time. And I'm calling him, and he's like, I'm basically pouring out. I'm like borderline crying on the phone, where I'm like, okay, this went down, this went south. I don't know what to do. This is what I just sold my car. Like, and he's kind of like chuckling on on the phone. And I'm like, but in my head, it registered because in his story, his early 30s, actually, he lost over $100 million, because his pride and his ego got ahead of him, and ended up making it back in less time. But a very different, he calls it his quantum shift, but it was a very different person after that. It was much more personal, I guess, purpose driven. But that was kind of the realization as I'm on the phone with him, like, wow, yeah, I could laugh with you because it's just like it makes my problems seem so small right now, just because they just seem so big in the moment. But
Mhm.
as my entire life, it's just a drop in the bucket, and I'm like, okay. But instantly, he's like, man, you can work with me. I'm here whenever you need you. I'm your brother, Uncle Dave, whatever you want to call me. I'm here for you. And so it was just always good knowing I had somebody like that in my corner, and I didn't need anything more than that, I guess, encouragement from him. I ended up not going back to work with him and getting another opportunity, but it was like that's all I needed. The belief from
Mhm.
him, and mentors, and to see things in you that you don't see in yourself yet. Uh, that was one of the biggest things as far as like what impacted me to then take the next steps, or to have enough confidence, or I guess a perceived confidence that I could then go and use to get me to the next step. But yeah, so David.
I
The other two
think
are really good too.
Dave.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So you didn't quite share with me what this, and this is that you're supposed to do so you could show up on those stages and create more content and be all those things. So I'm wondering what's that great piece of advice that Dave did teach you?
It's funny. I always try to like, because I forgot after a couple of years, where it was like, what was it again? It was just very simple. Like, um, you know, uh, like his framework was based on daily actions and daily
Mhm,
values.
mhm,
And so he had a he had his framework of gratitude, empathy, accountability, and inspiration. And that was everything that he went through. Really, just to, I guess, set the tone for the day. Anything he went through, it would be gratitude, grateful for where I am, where I've been, and where I'm going. and just really setting the tone for that. The empathy for yourself, right? That not taking yourself too seriously, to know that you're going to have ups and downs and you're not going to be perfect along the way. The accountability is like, okay, if there's things in my life that are happening, why are they happening, and how did I attract that? What am I doing to make that happen? How am I accountable? And then the last one was inspiration, where it was like, this is a reminder that you're connected to the highest source and power in the world. And, you know, you have this, when you're connected to spirit, you're in spirit. It's like you can then be inspired and move inspired. And it's a completely different, I guess, way to move versus out of fear and scarcity and, or I guess ego. It was much more this cleaner fuel, if you will, to be able to run on, where I'm running on inspiration. So those were really the four values that he went by, and daily practices. He was big about, one was taking daily inventory of your values, your personal values, your experiential values, your giving values, and your receiving values. So he'd go through that. And then the other one was a rule that he had: do it now. 100% of the things you do now get done. So he's like, whatever it is, 5 minutes, 3 minutes, 10, 15, do it now and it gets done. You don't have to think about it again. After that, it was student of your calendar. So he's a nut on his calendar, and I turned into a nut on my calendar, like just going crazy. But he had three things. He studied what you have planned, what you don't have planned, basically the white space, and your sleep. He's like, you got to figure out those three things, and be very intentional with them, and study your calendar: 30 minutes in the morning, 30 minutes at night. And that was it. And I would just go through in that. Uh, and then what was the last one? There's one more. Um, Man, I can't remember right now, but I basically had this whole framework imprinted in my head at the time. But
See,
yeah.
he was a man of God. He also is very spiritual. And
Mhm.
I was going to ask if your mentors were spiritual and if they influenced you in any way to be more spiritual as well.
Yeah. So definitely an interesting, because I was always attracted to that, but my faith walk didn't start till after Ed Milet. And really, when I had my first like failures in business, where I had built something and then it completely just tumbled down, is where I like got brought to my knees, and I've eventually humbled myself and started walking on my faith journey. But before that, he was very much on, yeah, very spiritual, I'd say. And he wasn't as out there as he is now with it. He's very much more out there. He loves to talk about God from stage now. But before, it was much more of like The Secret kind of thing, with the law of attraction and meditating. And he would he would teach me a lot about understanding kind of, he was a big energy guy. And it was cool because at that time I loved the science of it, right? Because then I would go down the science of neuroplasticity and the Joe Dispenzas of the world, and understanding how the mind really works and how these things are happening in the quantum field. And I loved the science behind it. But it wasn't until years later, a good friend of mine, Jake Havron, was like, I was talking to him, and this is one of my faith journey just started, and I was kind of like tipping into it. And I believed in the universe, right? I believed in all that, but it was like I was still wasn't there. And we're talking, and I'm kind of explaining where I'm at, and he's like, bro, he just looks at me, he's like, you're so close. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, you're one layer away. He's like, how can you believe in creation without believing in the creator? And that one just hit me, that one line, where I was like, oh wow, I'm going into it, going into the whole universe side of things, but how can I believe in this without believing in the creator? And so it tied in that last layer, where that's where I started to actually lean into my faith. And I started getting into the Bible. I started getting into just getting around other friends that were ahead of me in the faith, and could guide me, teach me whatever questions I had. People like Jake. So that's where really that started to happen. But Ed, big faith dude. So he was a big inspiration of like, for identity, really truly understanding identity. And so that helped me a lot to just see myself differently. And that tied in with the faith, tied in with the fact that he's just awesome. He could fire me up to run through a wall, and and make you cry and laugh in the same 30 seconds. And he was an amazing leader, and an even better coach. And he used to coach us and speak life into all of his people. And I still have voice messages from Ed where he's like, "You're a champion, you're a leader," and this and that. He's going in and he's like, "You got all the talent in the world, brother, but this is a systems business." And he would just like hype me up. And to have that from somebody like Ed in the same way is like I'm borrowing his belief now. Until the internal stuff starts to change over time, where it's like I'm not just telling myself I believe this, I actually do believe it. So it took some time, but yeah, definitely, I took pieces from all of them that ended up putting me on my faith journey. That and getting humbled in business over years. It's like it was to the point where I was like, okay, God, obviously I don't know what I'm doing. So help. She was like, he was like, okay, I don't want to do this with if it's not what you want. Like, cause I'm like, obviously I don't know what the heck I'm doing. So like I'm in. And I had a friend that was in my ear for like 2 years. And I think this is really important why the people around you are so important is that this friend, a buddy of mine, Jacob, was in my ear for 2 years. Like, bro, just come to church with me. Just come to church with me. And I was like, it's your thing. It's not my thing. Total respect. Like, it's cool, bro. Like, I like that you do that, but it's just not for me. And then it wasn't until that humbling moment where he was still in my ear, the little birdie, and he's like, "Bro, just come to church with me." He's like, "All the answers are there," and I'm like, "Okay." And finally, I just like gave in. I was like, "Okay, I'll come to church," and everything, completely changed from there.
Okay, so we originally met in Bible study,
Yeah.
and love that I got to connect with you, and our group is growing. And
Yes.
there's another person in that group that I've known over the years named Brian Ford. And
Mm.
Brian just sent me Ed Milet's podcast with Tim
Mhm.
Tebow and said that that's what
Oh,
actually inspired his faith journey.
wow. It's
So
just such a good story. I love Tim Tebow's story.
it's a great one. I was crying
Mhm.
like 15, 20 minutes in when he was talking about Kelly and like saying that it's about serving and not about us. And, just really, really great
Yeah.
interview.
Powerful. Yeah.
Yes. So I'm a big believer in Jesus Christ. You are as well. And
Mhm.
I know that I was going to ask you earlier, like, had it always been that way? But you just mentioned right now, not necessarily. It actually
Mhm.
grew through your business as a part of your evolution. And
Yeah.
I wonder where your conviction started and where it's rooted from and what's brought you
Mm.
to who you are today and how you walk so closely with God. Because I mean, people have even made comments about how you're not the cussing guy, and you people don't want to cuss around you now, and so they're
Yeah.
more
Yeah.
convicted too. And it's inspiring to see that, because I know that you are in a way kind of leading our Bible study when Rick's not there too. So
Yeah.
I see you walk so closely with God, and I wonder where that conviction started and where it's rooted from.
Man, I love this conversation, by the way. I love going here. Great question. Where was that rooted in that conviction? I think I think it really was just as I stepped more into faith and as I had some of those hardest times, like that time basically when I had to sell my car, my when I called David and my business had failed and everything, I had to move back home. And at the time, my mom was living in a house in Hesperia, up in the desert, basically. And it's in the middle of nowhere. There's no connections around. I grew up in Rancho Cucamonga, so it was like 45 minutes lower, and that's where all friends and stuff were. So I was essentially in the middle of nowhere now. No car, no like less than $200 to my name, and basically like coming home, like okay, like I basically failed. And when I came back to that, I had this whiteboard in my room, and I literally just wrote like, "What do I do now?" And I'm looking at this thing, and then I go and erase. I'm like, "What am I good at?" Like, because at the time, that business when I was with Ed was an insurance, and I was using my skills in media to brand myself. That's where my personal brand had started, and so, but uh, I was still like a fish trying to climb a tree with sales. It wasn't as natural as media. I'm very lucky and blessed to have built that skill through there because I did like 800 plus appointments that eventually taught me the skill, and I realized, oh, this is just human connection. And but that skill then I got to transfer out, but it still wasn't like my genius zone, if you will.
Mhm.
And my genius zone was always just the media stuff. It came so easy because in my head, I'm like, okay, what's the thing that takes that has the least amount of resistance but makes the most amount of momentum? And it was always the media side of things. And so I was like, okay. So I started writing different things down I could do. And during that time, though, I was really just seeking God's guidance because I was like, what do I do? Like, and even this to speak on adversities, right? When I went home, my my mom was in a very tough spot. She was in a very toxic relationship that was just not good for her, and she couldn't leave because she didn't have the funds to be able to take care of herself. My dad at the time was had just gone on disability from his work, so he had to cut like 30% down to 30% of his wages and figure out how to basically live. And so my family struggled like financially. Like we were one shake away from like we might end up homeless. Like what is going on? And I remember during that time, I spent about 4 hours a day in the Bible because I was just like, I gotta know this guy. Like I gotta know God. I don't I just and I just craved it. I was like, I need to know and I need to um really get to this understanding of what this whole concept is about God and faith. And for me, it was like hours a day, and I kept craving more and craving more. When I wasn't doing that, I was watching sermons right before I went to bed, and I'd wake up and do it again. There's no churches out there or anything, so I would do online. But during the day, it was just like hours and hours a day in the Bible, and that went on for about 3 months. And during that time, it was really a struggle because seeing my mom in this situation and seeing my dad and just seeing them struggle, my little sister too, just being in the middle of it. In my head, I remember at one point I just broke down and I was like praying, and then I was just like, God, like, dude, whatever I need to do, like, let me just take care of my family. And at the time, after the business failed, it was like, sure, the business failing was one failure, but in my head at the time, it was like getting a job was the biggest failure. Like going back and having to get a job was even worse to me. I was like, I could start another business, but like, I don't want to get a job. I don't want to go back and work. And especially up there, I had no car and everything else. So in my head, I'm like, I'm going to work at Jack in the Box or like the liquor store down the street. Like, I can't really go anywhere else. Like, what am I going to do? And at that time, I remember praying and very clearly God spoke to me and he was like, I'll give it to you, but you don't need it." And I just didn't really know what that meant. I was just like, okay, that was clear. But at this time too, this is when my prayer life really just started. So I'm like, is that God? Is that me? Is that what's going on here? You know, did I just make that up in my head? And not even 2 weeks later, about a week actually later, I get connected with Jeff. And I met him through David Meltzer years ago. Meltzer actually mentored Jeff when they were growing up, and he messaged me and was like, "Hey, I'm looking for someone to take over some of my media." And I forgot what the post was exactly, but he was literally just videographer editor. And I was like, I don't even know if I want this, but like I'll message him, whatever. And I was like, "Hey, not sure you remember me from Meltzer. We met back once and blah blah blah." And he's like, "I do remember you." And then and he asked to see some of my work, and I was like, well, I've been out of media for a couple years, but I started branding myself. Here's my personal PRs. Here's a video of mine that did 2 million views. Here's my podcast. Here's this and that. And he's like, okay, can you be at my office on Monday at 9? I'm like, sure. And right after that meeting, 2 days later, he hired me, and my salary there was the exact dollar amount I needed to be able to cover all my mom's bills. And so the way it just lined up was just crazy how God aligned it. And then even further than that, God was showing me that um, He's like to not put my faith in the money either, because I didn't even have to end up paying for my mom's bills because he opened a way where she was able to get out of the relationship. She got out of that. She moved back down to Rancho. She got a job down here and was able to take care of herself. And same thing, my dad. Luckily, was able to get a couple surgeries done and doing a lot better now. And it was just the ways things moved around. And I ended up moving down here to San Diego, and that's about three years ago, 3 years and some change. And that's where everything just started to shift. And but that time, I call it like my Moses time, was like I was out in the desert, really, quite literally. uh, but out in the desert, I just spent my alone time with God, and um, that just helped me so much, so that when I came down here, I was ready and prepared for a lot of things that were coming.
I resonate with that very deeply. I feel like there is a time to be, do, and give. And so obviously there was a time to be, to sit there, to be with God,
Mm.
to read and learn about God, right? Now you're in the
Yeah.
phase of doing and giving where you might cycle back and forth between those two. And another period will come where you're going to be as well. But I feel that where I spent last year personally a lot of time with God and reading, deep diving into the Bible. And I'm so
Mm.
close to finishing it.
Wow.
But I'm like, I decided, I'd read a chapter a day, then it became 2 chapters a day, then it became three. And then I started
Mm.
reading like for a half an hour. And then it was,
Mhm. Mhm.
more
Mhm.
than an hour. So there's some
Yeah.
days where I'll sit there for hours. Just I don't want to get out of bed. I just want to lay there and be there with God and enjoy and take the time and be. And so
Mhm.
I value that. I'm really glad that you do that. And so conviction for you is that you needed to find a way to take care of your family. And I love that the voice of God had said to you, you don't need this, but I'll give it to you anyway. Right.
Mhm.
You figured out that you didn't need it. And here you are now able to start and root up a company. And your business is taken off. And I see you constantly posting things in social media. Right now, today, even like you had mentioned that there was a difference between brand and viewership and the
Mm.
virality portion of it, right? It's not just
Yeah.
about being viral. It kind of reminds me of being a content creator, actually being a brand as well.
Mhm.
And I would love for you to just elaborate more on what intentionality is, because we talked about that in Bible study about how we
Mhm.
put an intention behind something. That's what creates the brand. Maybe
Mm.
you can elaborate more on what's the difference between viewership and branding.
Absolutely. It's so funny that you say that because I mean, I saw it today and same thing. I'm shooting some more content on that too. But yeah, I always tell every business owner that I kind of meet with, it's like 10 million of the wrong views is not going to change anything for you. 10,000 of the right views can change your life forever. Uh, Truly being able to reach the right audience and being intentional of how are you solving the problems for those people. The main thing I try to do when it comes to marketing is how is your name becoming the solution to somebody else's problem. When somebody says like, "Oh, you got to talk to Andrew," well, "Oh, I'm trying to do this content thing, but oh, you got to talk to Andrew," and that's the thing that I started to kind of look at and be very intentional. And the way I see it is, I love using this analogy of like a brick wall. Imagine trying to break through a brick wall. What's going to break through first? On one side, you have a drop of water that hits the same spot. It's just one drop, but constantly there's just drop after drop after drop. Or on the other side, you have gallon buckets and you're throwing them in different spots, but you're throwing a gallon of water at a time. Which one's going to break through first, right? The drop that just keeps hitting that same spot is going to get through. The gallon bucket will never get through, but that same spot over and over and over again, eventually you break through the wall. And so that's what I look at when I look at people's messaging, and who and how are they attracting their ideal client avatar or the ideal audience. And their messaging has to keep hitting that same spot so that they always keep coming back to you for the same thing. Because many people have these splashes and all over the place, but then they don't know what to come to you for. They don't know what solution you provide for them very clearly. And so that's really what I start to look at when I'm looking at different brands, being intentional with what they're posting and kind of reverse engineering. Why are we posting this? What is the desired outcome? Who are we trying to attract? Because I have some clients who will come to me and they'll complain about, oh, we had this marketing agency spending $20,000 a month on SEO and all this other stuff, and they're doing this big mass market play. And when I actually did the math on who their ideal clients were, these are friends of mine who have a construction company and they build new homes, new builds all along the coast. And we were looking at it, and the number of permits is only 300 a year here in San Diego, where they're regionally located. And on top of that, the actual demographic of people who could afford what they have, their stuff, is only about 400,000. And so I knew, okay, there's 400,000 people that we're trying to reach, and there's only 300 of them that we have to get them to trust us more than the competitors. And so, in that same vein, it's like we just have to make the messaging to hit them. We don't need 50 million views. We need those right 400,000, like those people. And out of that 400,000, we need 300 of them to trust us over the other companies. And it makes it very simple to see, okay, I can backtrack exactly that. And then I can tailor my messaging to those people, where I can say, hey, we're a boutique where we can operate at high levels, but it feels boutique and feels personalized. Where the same founders you're dealing with here, it's a married couple, right? So you're dealing with both of them, and they have their faith tied into it too, where their home is a space for something more than that. So it's very purposeful for them. So tying in their founder-led branding, their story, and understanding that the same people who take that first call with you are the same people walking the field with you, are the same people doing the architecture and design for you. Like, you get to work with that team and that core people who take it very seriously and look at every single detail, not just some big faceless construction company that's been around for 150 years, that you deal with 16 different people on one project and you don't know where to go for what. So it was really, okay, how do we differentiate ourselves in the market against the competitors with a smaller budget? Because some of those companies, they're paying SEO 50 grand a month plus for Google ads to be the number one rank on the first page. It's like, how do we compete with that with a smaller company? And so at that point, it's like, okay, let's get creative, and how do we gain trust with the other people, and at a way lower price than a lot of these big agencies are charging these people. And the results too, because they were saying even with the big agencies, it doesn't work. And I see it all the time, where people get in that, but unless they have the right brand strategy, the right brand positioning and identity, they don't know who they're attracting or who they're going for. And it all starts there. That's the tip of the sphere before you get into all the tactics and distribution and different formats and hooks and all that stuff. It's like, all right, let's figure out brand identity, and then we can move on from there.
So, for someone who does help others build brands and then be the face of their brand too, as well, how do you help someone build a brand identity? Can you just share a couple quick tips with the audience?
Yeah. Yeah. So I do have like a brand journey framework I'll take people through. A lot of times it's just understanding, like, the first question is like, what do you actually want to happen? Like, what do you want to happen? Do you want your business to grow double? Do you want to raise your revenue by 20%? Do you want to attract twice as many leads? If it's somebody who just has a podcast and is like, hey, I just want to get a ton of exposure to this and help as many people as I can. Great. Like, let's just find out, what do you actually want to happen? Then after that, it's okay, what do you have to be known for that to happen? And at that point, it's okay, well, if I want to be a creative strategist, the top 1% creative strategist, I have to be known for being an authority as a creative strategist. And so part of that is like, all right, what do I have to be known for? And then under that is, what do I have to do uh, to be known for that? And it's really being an authority out in your space, and being a thought leader and different, and being able to work with different big brands that I can add credibility to. And that's
Mhm.
where, like, my story of like, oh, the here I did 4 New York Times Square billboards, and here's this other stuff, and just the credibility plays. And then the last one is, okay, what do I have to learn to do that? And for a lot of people, that can be a different question. It can either be, oh, well, I have to learn how to bring in a team and scale my media, or it can be like, oh, well, I have to up my skills before I can be an authority like that. Because some people want to be the number one authority without the credibility or the I guess competence to be that. Like, obviously they want to be this, but it's like, oh, well, I have to learn. Like, for me, I still challenge myself with it. Is like, I have to learn creative strategy at even the highest levels, even more. And like, it changes every year. So like, what worked last year isn't going to work this year. And so it's a constant, like, what do I have to learn and be able to do that? And that's really where it starts. Um, where once you can hit that on the head, then you can go to the other pillars. So it starts with brand ID, then you go to content, then you go to exposure, then you go to the funnel. How are you actually bringing people in and growing the audience? And
Mhm.
so, but if you don't have that first part right with the brand identity, the rest of it doesn't get aligned. But if you do have it right, you get the brand ID right, you attract the right people, is because you're making the right content. And if you're making the right content, you're getting the right exposure. The right exposure leads to the right people in your funnel, and you know they're the right people because they're either buying or subscribing or following along, whatever it is that the goal is. And so that's what builds people's brand equity, where it's like, okay, I know your brand, I know who you are, I know what you stand for, I know the problem you solve in the world, and I know who I can send to you or what I can get from coming and following your content or engaging or hiring you. And so the clearer that can get, the easier content gets. And at that point, then, okay, let's go into distribution. How do we turn one podcast into 30, 40 different posts? And how do we turn you sitting down for 1 hour a week into 150, 300 posts a month? Because a lot of times these founders are founders, so they're really, really busy, and people get stuck spending more time on content than they do on their business. And it's a really bad place to be if your content isn't working. So it's
Yeah.
like, all right, you need to spend as much time as possible on your business and the least amount of time on your content without diluting your quality. So then it becomes systemized. And how do we make the most out of 115 minutes a month? I can get this many pieces of content and turn that into 300 posts. And this is what I used to do with, like, for instance, with Jeff. I tied the average views he was getting, tied to how many posts I can make, tied to how much of his time it would take. So it was an hour 15 of his time for a month. And that would turn into however many posts, like 60 actual pieces of clip content that I can then repurpose into 200 or 300 posts across 5 platforms. And then based off his average viewership, when I came down and sit down with him, I was like, okay, I just need an hour 15 of your time, and I can turn that into roughly 500,000 views a month. And that's if our views don't go up. They stay exactly the same.
Mm.
And so when I'm thinking that way, it showed me that like that's what these founders really need, is a system to be able to consistently put out as much content as possible with the right strategy, obviously, but to put out as much content as possible with the least amount of their time.
So someone like me, I'm over here just creating content for fun. I notice that I'm a little bit all over the place. I use it as yes, a tool for business, but I
Hmm.
have fun with social media, and I feel like that
Yeah.
might be a hard concept, not a concept, but a hard reality for people to face when they want to be both a creator and a founder.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And so I can imagine how you keep people in line, but let them also have some freedom with their fun too. And so
Yeah.
I will post just because collaborations and fun things. And so I noticed that I think that collaboration is also part of the branding. And so it's be careful
Hmm.
and be cautious of who you collaborate
Yep.
with. And also my intake is when you what you can and can't control. And I love asking this question in every interview because I talk about the waves in life. And so
Mhm.
it you might get pummeled by the waves. I used to have a sign behind me that had said, like, you can't always ride the waves, but you can learn to surf. And so
Yeah.
it's like one of those where you have the things that you can control and the things that you can't control. And I would love to learn what it is that you can and can't control in life.
Hmm.
And just give me a little bit of that analogy right there too.
I love that because it's funny. The exact same. So the information of like how I pulled his time to average viewership ratio in that same presentation, the first thing I opened up with was what we can control and what we can control. Like I literally like laid it down. Like that was the first thing, and I was like, okay, I'm just gonna set expectations and be real with you. And I was sitting there with him, and I'm like, we can't control the algorithm. We can't control what's going to pop off or what's not. We can't control, the, I guess, how quickly we can build the brand or whatever. But the things that we can control is the inputs, the quality of the content, the frequency and consistency of the content, and then the speed, how quickly we can get more content out. And those were the things that I focused on right there when it came to my brand, or his brand at the time, was like, these are the controllables. This is what we can control. It's not to us to make the outcome happen. Yes, we can go in and look at the data and tweak stuff and make stuff better. But at the end of it, it's like you can't get hooked up on vanity metrics and just the number side of it. And you said something very important, which was having fun with it. I tell every single founder, like, if you're not having fun with it, you're not going to do it. Like, after a few months, they end up falling away or falling off of content because they're like, oh, I got to go and film again. I don't want to do this and that. It's because they're trying to play a part that they're not, and they're not being authentic. They're not being personable with it. They're not having fun with it. And if the founder isn't having fun with it, he's not going to do it and not going to stay consistent with it. And it won't be as authentic. And the most authentic brands win in this world, just flat out. They do. That's why you see creators that are having fun with it, that are doing the 30 million views of video and this and that, that look like they're just having fun. Now, the whole creator founder thing is an awesome I guess, topic to touch on because every single founder in today's day now is becoming a creator, and every single creator is becoming a founder, right? So it's like going back and forth where now these creators are starting to think like founders, and these founders are starting to think like creators, and it's kind of going back and forth. But they have to find that medium, right?
Mhm.
For instance, Mr. Beast was very creator first. He was creator first, built the giant YouTube, and then went into like Feastables and Beast Games and all the other stuff that now the dude's worth billions, right? So it's like he was creator first, became founder. There's many other ones who are founder first that became creators, like a lot of I mean, Mark Zuckerberg, Jeff Bezos, like a lot of these guys that have brands, Elon Musk, you wouldn't think of them as brands, but they're brands, right? They're founder led brands. And so many of them started there and started becoming creators where I guess, on the platforms that fit them best. But yeah, it's an interesting thing going back and forth. But because there's some stuff that creators are really good at that the founders just are not, and vice versa, right? A lot of the creatives that are great at creative probably not as good as business many times, and the founders like understand business and they're able to understand how to actually make this into a viable business model. So it kind of goes back and forth, but there's a happy medium in there. But either way, the we're kind of in this land of the creator founder today, and it's really exciting because those who are good at the creator side and at the founder side get to leverage both, and really get to see where they can take their business with the amount of access and reach and just availability that we have today is just so cool. So yeah, it's a really cool thing going back and forth in creator founder, but it's important to be both.
It's important to be both. Yes. Okay. Well, so how can someone like me who's all over the place and wants to be both work with you? What are the opportunities and ways that we can work with you?
Yeah. So the first thing I do with people, like I said, the tip of the spear is that the branding side, the brand identity. So what I do with most people is I do a brand audit. So I'll go through and understand all of their market, their positioning, their messaging, the way it aligns with their business, and then from there be able to develop an entire brand strategy around how I would attack and position their brand in the marketplace. And that's usually like a 90-minute deep dive that we'll do with basically showing them their entire strategy. So that's the very first step, because without that step, it doesn't matter. It's kind of like um, if you went to the doctors and before the doctor, you're just asking for, I guess, a prescription or a diagnosis before even having them check you up. Like that's the first thing is like, all right, let's do a checkup. Let's figure out what's going on. And then from there, I can give you a diagnosis. Okay, I would say this, this, and this. So it's the first step initially into getting that. And then after that is where I can actually then execute the plan for them. And many times, if they have a team, maybe they have an editor here and there. Then from there, I can come in as a creative strategist and help them to direct their team and bring in the systems. Or if they're like, hey, I don't really have a team, or I have a team, but they're just not it. And I'm this guy that I had it here and there and they're like, hey, I want you to just take it over, then we'll manage the entire brand. We'll bring in the team for them and actually start to scale that way too. So it really is from brand identity to distribution and management on both sides. But it's the left right hook. So we need both of them. But yeah, that first step is usually I go deep dive with a brand audit. And personally, I love brand strategy. Like it's my favorite thing to do. So I love spending the most amount of time there. But with good intention because many founders, especially on the founder side, many founders they want to move fast, and
Mhm.
usually they don't take the time to ask themselves the hard questions and actually give an answer that is meaningful. And then they find themselves rebranding 6 months later, and then rebranding again 6 months later, and then pretty soon they just fall off and they stop doing it because they're not really tied to it. There's not it's just a thing that all their friends told them they should do. Oh, you got to do content. Oh, you got to build. And it's like, no, like find the purpose. The because is what they call it. Like, what is the because? Like, we want to grow the brand and we want to build a business because what? Well, because our product can actually serve the marketplace and solves a problem that nobody else is solving. Or we can help people to stop getting ripped off by other marketing companies by helping them to understand exactly how to position themselves and the way they should be attacking the social media game. There's different because there, what is the higher purpose for this? And I think that works really well with teams too, to get everybody on the same page of like, why are we trying to achieve this goal of raising our revenue by X amount this year? Well, because we want to be able to grow the business, we want to be able to get you guys more leadership, better leadership, or be able to give back or raises or whatever it is. But above that, what is the higher thing is the purpose that that product, that company is about. And that's where a lot of your values come into it, your mission statement, which same thing. People just think it's the writing on the wall. Oh, this is my mission statement. We're the best in the world because blah, 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 blah. But it's like, no, that stuff actually matters because when people see this through your brand, that's what resonates with them is the overall big thing. I mean, same thing with Mr. Beast. I mean, he was always constantly giving away money and doing all this awesome stuff for people. And even right now, like he's doing this raise for building these wells, I think all around Africa. And he's like, basically $2 per everyone who donates $2. It's a year of water basically that they're helping to get. So there's people like, I think Tim Tebow was one of them that donated like 25 grand too or something. But now he's changing generations of lives. And what does that have to do with a funny YouTube video or Beast Games or a chocolate bar from Feastables? Like nothing. But it's the messaging behind it. It's the overall mission statement and the brand. When you think Mr. Beast, that people that actually consume his content, they know who he is because they love seeing that and they just want to support and they want to continue and they fall in love with that. There's a book called A Thousand True Fans, and it basically says that with 1,000 true fans, you can live a very comfortable life and never have to do anything else because truly with 1,000 true fans, you have a lifetime of people who will constantly support you and you can then build services and products to help them that you can create a life all around. And I think it's a beautiful thing because today, if we get 500 or even 1,000 sometimes views on a video, we're like, man, that's so low. Like I was expecting like 50,000. Like this one was gonna hit. I thought it was 100,000. But we forget how many people that is. If we were in a room with 500 people right now, you'd probably be sweating it, scared to even say anything, and let alone like, oh, my video didn't reach enough people. But we forget that behind every single view, there's a human being behind it. There's somebody
Mhm.
that's watching and consuming and pressing that like button. There's some kind of emotion going on, and we forget because we just see the number. But those are 500 different people that all just swiped across and saw your face and watched your video, and we overlook it really, really easily. And so I try to remind myself many times is like that 1,000 true fans. I just need to build 1,000 true fans, and that's it.
That's beautiful. Look at this is one like the same thing as guerrilla marketing. It's like one person really at a time. It really matters for them.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I love that you are genuine about connecting with people. I want to know how people can find you and connect with you and where is the best platform to reach out.
Yeah, Andrew Zalez on all platforms. My Instagram is where you'll probably find me most. Same thing, Andrew Zalez, Zalez. But yeah, I mean, the best way to connect with me, just message me. I'm a big relationship person. I love to connect with people. I always like to work with friends. Like a lot of people will be like, oh, I don't like doing business with friends. For me, it's like, well, I love doing business with friends because I love to do like the best I can and see the results in them and see how happy they are. And a lot of times those friends become ambassadors of what you do because they just want to support you too. And so it's just, yeah, I'm a big relationship guy. So I love to connect with anyone. I'm an open book. I love giving the game for free. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer anything because I just love to do it either way. But yeah, that's the easiest way to connect with me.
Awesome. Well, thank you for being on the show. I'm so glad that I got to learn something new. I learned a lot of new things actually, but same with the audience. I'm sure that they're taking this home with them and will want to work with you and build a brand.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for having me. This has been awesome. And I just applaud you for how consistent you are with this and the way you show up constantly. And, we got to meet through the Bible study, but I get to see you in all these different arenas and just crushing it. And, I just encourage you to keep stepping into it, keep doing everything you're doing because I love to see it.
Thank you, Andrew.
Of course.